What if I told you that not all discomfort is a lesson in disguise? Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And he was right. But there's a part he didn't say out loud, and it's the part you've probably lived through without even realizing it. Some people are professional irritants. They don't just trigger your inner wounds by accident. They thrive on it. And here's the twist, it's not that you enjoy the chaos. It's that, deep down, you're addicted to the hope that one day, they'll finally become the person you keep imagining them to be. Let me ask you this, have you ever stayed in a toxic relationship, not because it felt good, but because you clung to the fantasy that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally wake up and treat you the way you deserve? You thought you were chasing peace. But according to Carl Jung's shadow work, what you're really chasing is a resolution to an unresolved dream. You see, Jung discovered that we often project our unconscious desires onto others. We give them roles in a story they never agreed to. We believe if we just love harder, wait longer, stay patient, they'll finally change. But here's what Jung knew that most people don't. They won't. Because they're not confused. They're consistent. The truth is, your growth begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. Silence, in this context, is not weakness. It's clarity. It's the refusal to keep feeding energy into a dynamic that was designed to drain you. So if you've been stuck in the loop, giving second, third, 10th chances, this might be the moment you need to hear. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're just waking up from the illusion. And that is where the real healing begins. Have you ever found yourself exhausted, mentally, emotionally, after another conversation where you tried to explain yourself to someone who just didn't want to understand? Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." And there comes a moment in every healing journey when you stop trying to be heard by the wrong people. You stop offering explanations to those who've already decided to misunderstand you. And that moment is the beginning of awakening. You see, many people think silence is weakness. That choosing not to respond means you've given up. But Jung understood something deeper. Silence can be a form of psychological warfare. A powerful decision not to waste another ounce of your life force trying to fix what you didn't break. Because here's the truth, they're not confused. They're consistent. The toxic person in your life. They know exactly what they're doing. It's not a matter of not understanding your feelings. It's a choice to disregard them. And when you keep showing up, keep explaining, keep hoping, they don't see your effort. They see an opportunity. This brings us to something Jung knew most people miss. You are not a rehab center for emotionally irresponsible people. You're not here to process their unprocessed emotions. Jung described it perfectly. We often become what he called containers for other people's unresolved chaos. And the more we try to soothe, fix, or rationalize it, the more we train them to ignore our boundaries. So let me ask you this, when someone disrespects you, is your first instinct to walk away, or to explain why you deserve better? If you lean toward explaining, it's not just kindness, it's a survival habit you've learned to maintain emotional safety. But at what cost? Because every time you justify yourself to someone who consistently crosses the line, you're actually teaching them that the line doesn't matter. And now, here's the part that really shakes people. Toxic people don't feed on your silence. They feed on your reaction. Jung called this psychological energy. They crave it. Your anger. Your pain. Your defense. Whether you praise them or argue with them, it doesn't matter. It's not about emotion. It's about access. They just want to know they can still get inside your mind. Every word you say, every emotional reaction you give, it becomes fuel. They don't need you to like them. They just need to stay relevant inside your psyche. That's why no contact feels so threatening to them. That's why your stillness drives them mad. Because when you stop reacting, you take back the one thing they never earned, control over your inner world. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Ask yourself, is this person truly trying to understand me, or just trying to keep access to my energy? And if the answer feels heavy in your chest, that's not a red flag. That's your intuition reminding you, you're allowed to be free. Your silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is. Have you ever wondered how certain people always know exactly what to say to trigger you? It's not an accident. It's not just intuition. It's strategy, even if it's unconscious. Toxic individuals are often master manipulators, not because they're smarter, but because they've studied you. Your emotional buttons. Your fears. Your soft spots. They've memorized the emotional roadmap to your psyche, and they use it with surgical precision. Carl Jung called this the unconscious manipulation of psychic energy. These people aren't just reacting, they're extracting. Every raised eyebrow, every perfectly timed silence, every guilt-laced comment, it's all calculated to pull you back into their emotional orbit. But here's what Jung found: silence isn't weakness. Silence is power. Because silence doesn't give them anything to work with. And when you offer no reaction, their strategy collapses. And that leads us to something deeper. What if silence isn't just a tactic, but the final chapter in a toxic cycle? Jung described a sacred psychological transformation called individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. When you reach this point, silence isn't passive. It becomes your boundary. A full stop. A locked door. A psychological, do not enter. And toxic people? They hate locked doors. They thrive in chaos, drama, and emotional confusion, but silence. Silence is the end of the narrative. It tells them, you no longer have access here. And maybe the most heartbreaking truth. Every time you explained yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you chipped away at your authentic self. You handed them pieces of your peace. Jung believed that when you do this, you're inviting someone into a mental space they were never meant to inhabit. They rearrange it, like furniture in a home that's not theirs. But here's the breakthrough: they can't manipulate what you no longer react to. They can't twist your silence. They can't gaslight your truth if you stop letting them light the fire. Because when you stop responding, the story ends. There comes a moment, quiet, powerful, when you simply stop responding. Not out of spite. Not to win. But because you've realized, the game isn't worth playing anymore. And in that moment, something breaks. Not in you. In them. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He believed that manipulators don't actually fear confrontation. What they truly fear is your indifference. Because as long as you're reacting, arguing, explaining, defending, they're still relevant in your psychological story. But the moment you fall silent, their script has no more pages. The story ends. And they're left standing on an empty stage, facing the one thing they've run from their entire life, their own shadow. You see, most toxic people would rather control you than confront themselves. Because control gives them a false sense of identity, a mask to hide behind. But when you stop feeding that illusion, when you stop answering their texts, engaging in their drama, or proving your worth, you remove their access. And that is the beginning of their collapse. Jung didn't tell us to scream louder or post more. He said something revolutionary: disappear from their psychological radar. And here's the beautiful truth: absence is not passive. Absence speaks. It roars. When you no longer show up to their chaos, your silence becomes the loudest declaration of self-respect they'll ever hear. And yes, they'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of being cold. They'll claim you turned your back on them. But Carl Jung would smile at that, and say, good. That's the point of psychological growth. You're no longer the person who explains your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. You've changed, because you chose peace over performance. And that, my friend, is the kind of change they never saw coming. There's something deeply unsettling to a manipulative person, when the version of you they once controlled no longer exists. You're no longer explaining yourself. You're not apologizing for setting boundaries. You're not shrinking to make others comfortable. And that silence, that stillness, it says more than words ever could. Carl Jung once wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And that's exactly what you've done. You've stepped into your own psychological worth, and it's driving them mad. Because now, they have no way back in. They can't press the same buttons. They can't provoke the same reactions. You've changed, but not in a way they can influence. You've changed in a way they can no longer reach. That's why they panic. Because their power wasn't in who you were, it was in who they could make you believe you were. But not anymore. Now you've reclaimed the narrative. You've rewritten the script. And the most powerful part? You disappeared, not out of avoidance, but by conscious choice. You chose peace over chaos. Solitude over toxicity. Clarity over confusion. Jung said, "Who looks inside, awakens." And that's what you've done. You're awake now. Not waiting for closure. Not seeking revenge. Just quietly walking away, because that is the closure. Your absence is your final word. And it echoes louder than any explanation ever could. There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, when you stop explaining, stop chasing, and simply, stop responding. And in that silence, something powerful happens. You reclaim your mind. Carl Jung once said, "Where your attention goes, your psychological energy flows." That's not just a quote, it's a compass. Because attention isn't just focus. It's life force. It's presence. And not everyone deserves access to it. Some people have shown, time and time again, that they don't honor your inner world. That they twist it. Drain it. Diminish it. So now, you've drawn the line, not with anger, but with distance. And that distance, that silence, it's not avoidance. It's psychological sovereignty. You're no longer offering emotional real estate to those who only know how to destroy. You've pulled your energy inward, where it belongs. And for the first time in a long time, you feel free. So if you've recognized yourself in these words, if you've seen the quiet, sacred transformation of your own healing, know this, you're not alone. You're awakening. Not to fight. Not to prove anything. But to live. To live from your core, not your wounds. To walk in peace, not performance. And to protect your energy like the gold it truly is. If this message touched you, or reminded you of your worth, share it with someone who needs to hear it too. And subscribe to the channel. Because this journey of healing, it's only just beginning. And you deserve to walk it fully awake.